What took place 1 decade ago this week forever changed so many lives. The randomness of these crimes left our community in fear. And for the victims' families, they have been forced to constantly relive this nightmare. Appearing in court, they tell us, more than 350 times in their pursuit of justice. January 6th, 2007, 21-year-old Shannon Christian and her boyfriend, 23-year-old Christian-Newsom, do not arrive at a friend's party and never return home to their parents. They were last seen at the Washington Ridge Apartments. January 7th, a train conductor reports a body found near the railroad tracks and 9th Avenue in East Knoxville. It wasn't until the next day we learned the bound and burned body was that of Christopher Newsom. Later, it was revealed he had been raped, beaten, and shot. Tim Miller was our first reporter on the scene.
We started hearing on Sunday from family members that the two young people were missing, and that's when we learned about the discovery of Chris's body. In the hours that followed, fear set in about Shannon's fate, Chris's own father fighting back tears.
He would not have hesitated one moment with her in danger without putting his life on the line. He was that type.
Meanwhile, friends and family start their own massive search. That search leading to Shannon's abandoned 4Runner, not far from where Chris's body was found.
We're all hoping for the best right now. We're hoping that we do able to find her and that she is still alive.
January 9th, fingerprints found in Shannon's car lead investigators to this house, 2316 Chipman Street. A body is found, but not immediately identified. Family and friends fear the worst. Later, investigators confirm Shannon is dead. She was found in a trash can, beaten, raped, and bleach was poured down her throat. The medical examiner determined she suffocated in that trash can. Our legal expert remembers what it was like as the true details of this crime started to leak out.
Then the injuries and the extent of the torture and how the victims appeared when they were found started kind of permeating out. And you really saw people, prosecutors, that you could tell, I mean, veteran prosecutors that have done this for years, that they were impacted, that they couldn't talk about it. So this was a very horrific, and sinister is a good word, crime that just impacted and touched everyone involved, and then that feeling started to permeate throughout the community.
Two names coming from police, half-brothers LaMarcus Davidson and Latavius Cobbins. Davidson had lived at the Chipman Street home and already faced aggravated robbery and carjacking charges. He had not been out of prison for long and was already wanted in Knoxville for driving on a suspended license. But it was a tip a day later that led to Lebanon, Kentucky. State, federal, and local law enforcement agencies, even the Knox County Sheriff himself, teaming up to arrest Cobbins and another suspect, George Thomas.
The finger pointing almost always happens if there's more than one person involved in a murder. It's always, I didn't really pull the trigger. So-and-so's the one that really killed him. I didn't do that. Now, I was there, but, you know, and you see that. And that's exactly what started happening.
During the interrogation, Cobbins saying that he saw Davidson and another suspect, Eric Boyd, commit the carjacking.
They jump out of the car and run to a white SUV. And, there was two people, a man and a woman at the SUV. They jump in, pointing guns at them, and they carjacked them, I guess.
The same day Cobbins was caught, the search back here in Knoxville led to a home on Reynolds Street and LaMarcus Davidson. We would later learn it was Boyd who actually told police to go there.
Everyone we were looking for, we have found, and we now are talking to them.
However, a few days later, another arrest in Kentucky. Cobbins' girlfriend, Vanessa Coleman, she admitted to being at the Chipman Street home the night of the crime and that she had been told it was Davidson, Cobbins, and Thomas who burned Chris's body. Coleman also telling investigators she saw the men repeatedly go in and out of the bedroom where Shannon was tied up and blindfolded.
He had choked her and she was laying on the floor. He hollered at me to come in there and check her pulse. He said that he couldn't tell if she was dead or not.
And Davidson had been talking to investigators too.
He said, well, am I gonna die? And I don't want that.
The specifics of his story kept changing over the course of 2.5 hours as he laid blame on the others. Cobbins for the carjacking, Thomas for killing Newsom, and he insisted he did not rape Shannon Christian.
I don't
Eric Boyd was the first to go to trial in April of 2008, but Boyd faced charges as an accessory after the fact, not for the murders or the rapes, despite what the other suspects told police. This case was also federal, meaning no cameras in the courtroom. Boyd, in a police interrogation tape, portrayed Davidson as the killer. The defense said Boyd stopped helping Davidson after learning about his part in the murders. The verdict? Guilty. The sentence? 18 years. The Christian-Newsom families recognizing this was only the beginning.
So whatever else we have to endure, we will.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
For as long as it takes.
More than a year later, August of 2009, the first state trial, Latavis Cobbins. A jury brought in from Nashville because of all of the publicity. Cobbins starting the trial by entering a surprise guilty plea to lesser charges.
Latavis Cobbins made bad choices. He's manned up this morning and taken ownership of them.
Evidence from Christian's rape kit showed DNA from Cobbins and Davidson. The most graphic testimony, though, coming from the medical examiner. Signs of multiple attackers. Both Christian and Newsom had been raped. Christian repeatedly, suffocating in a trash can. Newsom bound and gagged, then shot execution style and burned. Grim photographs in these trials left a mark on all the people who saw them.
I've seen autopsy photos of homicide cases, abuse cases for 2 decades. And once I saw 3 to 4 of those pictures, I left the courtroom.
The defense maintaining that while Cobbins was there for the carjacking and the kidnappings and did rape Christian, it was his older half-brother who did the killing. Another surprise, he took the stand.
She said, please, can you just convince him to let me go? I said, I'll try.
Then the verdict.
We, the jury, found the defendant, Latavis Cobbins, guilty of first-degree felony murder.
Guilty on all but 5 counts. The life sentence, not the death penalty, left the families feeling let down.
I mean, God dang, what do you got to do to earn the death penalty in this state?
Mid-October of 2009 brought LaMarcus Davidson's trial, and much of the testimony was what we had heard before. But the defense was using its cross-examinations to now raise questions about the victims, with talk of Adderall to cram for test and marijuana use.
Y'all got something out of the trial?
Yes.
What was that?
We had gotten his weed, his marijuana.
He's not the one on trial. Those kids were totally innocent, completely innocent.
After a week of testimony and 8 hours of deliberating,
we, the jury, find the defendant, LaMarcus Duval Davidson, guilty of first-degree felony murder of Hugh Christopher Newsom, guilty of first-degree felony murder of Shannon Kristen.
In the sentencing phase, the victims' families told the jury about their loss.
My life will never be the same because of a senseless crime by people who have no regard for life.
And Davidson's half-sister described a rough upbringing and an abusive mother, but the jury wasn't swayed.
The punishment is death.
A few weeks later, December of 2009, the George Thomas trial and a Chattanooga jury brought in to hear the case. Prosecutors admitting they didn't have much physical evidence tying him to the murders, but Thomas was there and they argued he was responsible, showing the jury just how tiny the Chipman Street house was. The defense arguing that it was reprehensible for Thomas not to help the victims, but not criminal. The jury convicted Thomas on every single charge from kidnapping to rape, handing him a life sentence with no parole. Last to go on trial, Vanessa Coleman in May of 2010, another out-of-town jury from Nashville. Coleman's attorney saying at first his client would take the stand. That never happened. The jury returning not guilty verdicts on the charges related to Chris's rape and murder, and guilty on lesser charges for facilitating the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Shannon.
Notre Dame was his team, and baseball was the sport that he played.
Mary Newsom walks us through Chris's bedroom, relatively untouched since his murder 10 years ago this week.
I just kind of leave it.
On his bed, quilts have been added, made by friends following his death. Each square tells a story of Chris, like the orange and white shirt we have shown him wearing countless times in photographs.
That was Chris's favorite orange and white shirt.
It's now sewn together as part of this tribute to their son.
It's Chris. I expect to see him laying here.
Across the room in his closet, the last load of laundry Mary washed and folded for her son. She says she can't bear the thought of getting rid of anything, and that time is not healing their pain.
It doesn't really heal. You think about it every day and you go through it every day. We keep him, his picture up around the house, and we talk to him every day.
All the same, they do understand. Life is moving on around them.
One of the most difficult things for me has been watching his friends get married and have kids, and watching these kids grow up. That's very difficult for me. Going to their weddings and wondering, you know, this should be us.
While the Newsoms tell us they don't like to revisit the scene of the crimes in East Knoxville, Dina Christian does make a point to come to Chipman Street, where her daughter's body was found, at least once a year.
It was the worst day of my life, and it's still just like it happened yesterday.
Like the Newsoms, Dina says Shannon's room has stayed pretty much the same for the last 10 years.
Her book bag is still where it was when she put it down that Friday coming from school.
But that is about to change because Dina and Gary, Shannon's parents, are divorced now. Dina's moving out and being forced to pack up her little girl's belongings, possibly for the final time.
That's going to be very difficult. I don't know that I'll be able to do it. I mean, I'm sure I'll have to have my friends help me do that.
Dina says she still has trouble sleeping and often has nightmares about the way her daughter was killed.
I can still see those pictures of my daughter, and she was 5'9", okay, almost 5'9", granted, tied up like this in a trash can like this. And that's how she died.
But she says she must move forward for her son and for others, no matter how dark some days might be.
I just love to hear her voice and give her a hug and tell her I love her. Because I wouldn't want her to have to go through the pain that she went through again. But I'd love just to wrap my arms around her, and I don't know if I could ever let go. That was hard for me when first time to see that house.
For now, while unimaginably difficult, both families say they must continue to share stories about their children and these crimes because there's one suspect they feel who still needs to be tried in state court.
Eric Boyd has not been prosecuted fully, and until that is done,
we will not have closure.
My healing does not begin.
I've said it for 10 years and I'll say it forever. He's getting away with murder.
Again, everyone, Eric Boyd was only tried in federal court, sentenced to 18 years in prison. So why not state charges? Well, the man who was Knox County's DA at the time explained that to us, and you can go to our website, WATE.com, to hear from him, hear what he has to say. We also get a detective's take on Boyd, and we talk with the former sheriff who shares what he'd like to see happen with Eric Boyd in the future. Also, we do want to let you know late today we did have a chance to catch up with Shannon's father, Gary Christian, who just returned from getting remarried. While a lot in his life has changed, he says his fight to keep these suspects behind bars and to see the death sentence delivered to LaMarcus Davidson has not faded.
There needs to be a time frame in which that sentence is carried out, not only for the sake of justice, but for you know, the taxpayers' money, and if he's going to be put to death, it needs to be done.
If or when that day comes, do you have any desire to be there to see
Absolutely. It? Yeah, I want to look right. I want to look at him the whole time. I don't miss nothing.
Now, Gary went on to say if any one of these suspects ever gets out of jail, he has no doubt that they will commit another violent crime, and that, he says, is another reason to keep this heinous crime fresh in everyone's minds here in East Tennessee. Now, for a complete look at all of our coverage, you can find these stories under the As Seen On section of our website. Of course, that is WATE.com.
You know, Kristen, we've been talking about the families keeping the memories of their children alive. There's also an event planned for this weekend.
Yeah, it's one of the things they started doing just a few years ago, is having these public memorials. We want to let everyone know they're both this Saturday, the 7th. Christian-Newsom's will be at 3 p.m. at Woodhaven Memorial Gardens. That's right off of Edgemore Road, where he is buried. Shannon Christian at 5 p.m. at Highland West Memorial Park. And they are encouraging everyone to come. They say the community support, especially at these memorials, is really helping them move forward.